After living together, my boyfriend got me pregnant before we were married. When he came to discuss the marriage settlement fund, he thought he had me cornered and subjected me and Eleanor to all sorts of insults and condescension. On the wedding day, he refused to arrive for the wedding ceremony and demanded that I return the settlement and also contribute a house and 5 commercial properties as bridal assets. It was the last straw. I couldn't take it anymore. The next day, with Mom by my side, I went to the hospital for the surgery. I put the fetus in a foam cooler box and shipped it via courier to his front door. Soon after, he was diagnosed with azoospermia, meaning that child might have been his last. At the hospital entrance, he cried so loudly, "I was pregnant." Seeing the 2 lines on the pregnancy test, my heart couldn't help but panic. I quickly called David Miller and told him the news. He sounded excited at first, but when I brought up marriage, he went cold. "Sarah, about this, let's not rush." "Not rush? My pregnant belly will be showing in a few months, how can we not rush? Are you trying to avoid responsibility?" I couldn't hold back my inner grievance. I had been with David Miller many times since graduation. But later, after checking the condom by filling it with water, I found it leaked. I suspected he secretly pricked it with pinholes in the bathroom. But he flat out denied it. Later, I caught him repeatedly taking the condom off secretly. I had no choice but to take precautions myself. I was careful as can be. But I still got caught out this time. David Miller quickly said, "It's not that I don't want to be responsible, baby. You know marrying you is my biggest dream. But this pregnancy is so sudden, I need to discuss it with my parents." He sweet-talked me a lot more. I thought it made sense and meekly said, "Okay, then hurry and talk it over with Mary Miller and George Miller, and then formally ask for my hand." At this point, I still hope for David Miller and for love. And I was very confident that with my family's wealth, his family would surely approve. My family is in Grandview City. Since childhood, everyone called me a rich girl. My family was well off. While not as exaggerated as the rumors, we definitely had assets in the 9 figures. Various luxury cars like Ferraris, Aston Martins were all kept in the garage. So when David Miller came to my house for the first time, he was extremely shocked. After he went back, he pursued me very aggressively. I got together with him my sophomore year and had been dating him for 5 years. In these 5 years, he was incredibly attentive, gave me immense emotional value, and made me completely devoted and loyal to him. Although David Miller came from a small, struggling rural town and got into Grandview University, he was optimistic, resilient, and still worked part-time even with a national scholarship. His life wasn't easy. For this, I allocated $40,000 out of my $50,000 a month allowance to him. He was very touched and said he'd save the money to marry me after graduation. My father passed away early, and Mom runs a company and is busy every day. For me, money wasn't the most important thing, love was. And every moment I spent with David Miller, he gave me unique and exclusive affection. Now, it was finally time for him to fulfill his promise and take me home. But I didn't expect that after that phone call, David Miller never brought up marriage again. When I brought it up several times, he was very dismissive and perfunctory, even saying, "Are you annoying?" I said we'd talk about it later. What else do you want? Hanging up the phone, I felt very sad. Seeing my pregnant belly growing, I couldn't hide it anymore, so I hardened my heart and told Eleanor. Eleanor was utterly shocked and demanded, "Is it that one I told you to break up with before?" I could only nod timidly. Mom had known I was with David Miller before, and after learning about his family background, she strongly opposed it, hitting me and locking me in my room, ignoring me when I went on a hunger strike for 3 days. I couldn't take it anymore. On the surface, I told Mom I had broken up with David Miller, but in reality, I couldn't let go. Mom was so angry she hit me with a broom. Each hit pained my heart terribly. Finally, she looked at my pregnant belly and said, "Sai, what can we do now that it's like this? They're just banking on your pregnant belly to control you." The next day, she took me to his house to force the marriage. David Miller's parents' attitude was quite good. They offered tea and water and asked about my well-being. Eleanor said directly, no need for formalities, my future in-laws. My daughter is pregnant, and she's determined to follow your son, so I respect her decision. However, you must take responsibility. You can't just let my daughter be with him without proper status, can you? Mary Miller said, of course, as long as your family's bridal assets contribution is sufficient. Eleanor said, then let's discuss the marriage settlement fund. Settlement? Mary Miller's expression stiffened. Of course, how can you marry a daughter without giving a settlement? David Miller saw the situation going south and quickly said, of course, Eleanor, how much do you think is appropriate? Eleanor said directly, $1 million, $1 million. Mary Miller immediately jumped up from the sofa and exclaimed, are you asking for the lion's share? Look at our family's condition, we're dirt poor, 1 million? We have no money, only our lives. Actually, 1 million wasn't much to me, and I had given David Miller most of my university allowance. I knew he could definitely afford it. Unexpectedly, David Miller said directly, Eleanor, if you ask for that much, then let's not talk anymore. In our village, the most you pay for a bride is $88,000, $88,000. Sarah has been with me for so long, she's getting older, and she's pregnant. Heh heh. $50,000, $50,000, that's the most we can offer. Hearing this, I couldn't believe it. My Van Cleef Arpels necklace alone was worth more than $50,000, $50,000. David Miller, you said you wanted to marry me, is this your sincerity? Huh? What do you take me for? I don't need you. Big deal, I won't have the baby, who cares about you? As soon as I said it, I regretted it a bit. Because whenever I get angry, I tend to say a lot of spiteful things. But luckily, these words worked. David Miller visibly became anxious. Sarah, I was wrong, please don't get rid of the baby. It's just that 1 million is really too high, can it be a little lower? Finally, during the negotiation between Eleanor and David Miller's family, the settlement was negotiated down to $660,000, $660,000. I was quite satisfied when I left. That's why I didn't hear the conversation between David Miller and his mother in the kitchen. Son, your trick really worked, now they're practically begging us to marry her. You've been with her for a few years, and our family has already gotten over 1 or 2 million from her. Getting your money back is great. But $660,000, $660,000 is still too high, right? Mom, I have my ways. When the time comes, I'll make sure she gives back every penny of that settlement. Soon, his family sent over the $660,000, $660,000 settlement. Mom was also finding specialists to arrange the wedding details, without letting his family spend a dime. Eleanor said to me, Sarah, do you know that the worst thing a girl can be after in a relationship is a man's goodness? Because he can pretend for a while, but not forever. Sigh, things have come to this, I won't try to persuade you anymore. Although Mom was strict, she also respected my opinion. I said happily, Mom, it won't be like that, he said he'd be good to me for a lifetime. But I didn't expect that on the wedding day, David Miller was late to arrive for the wedding ceremony. I sat on the bed in my wedding dress. Time ticked by, the bridesmaids and cameraman were all watching me. Thank goodness. The 8th call I made to David Miller finally connected. Hello, David Miller, why aren't you here yet? Did something happen on the way? At this point, I was still worried about him. David Miller said, Sarah, it's nothing, don't worry, it's just that I suddenly feel like the settlement is too much. As soon as I heard him say that, I had a bad feeling. David Miller, $660,000, $660,000 might be a lot to marry someone else, but it's definitely not much to marry me. You know, my best friend's settlement when she got married was $8 million, plus a $10 million house, and all sorts of wedding jewelry. My friends are all from wealthy backgrounds like me. My $660,000 settlement, when it got out, was already being laughed at in our circle as cheap. But I forced myself to endure it, not complaining to David Miller at all, just hoping the wedding would go perfectly. David Miller interrupted me impatiently. Oh right, they gave your best friend a lavish wedding and a massive diamond ring. Well, who told you to choose me? I'm not capable, I can't give you something that good. So what do you want, David Miller? Someone nearby was already whispering. The groom isn't here yet, is the wedding off? Sarah is on the phone with the groom, why does her expression look wrong? I've met her boyfriend, he's totally not good enough for her. She insists on marrying him, she'll regret it sooner or later, don't talk about later. Being watched by so many people now, I already felt humiliated. I, who used to live a life of luxury, had never been subjected to such insult. David Miller said, Sarah, how about you give the settlement back for now? I'll make it up to you later, okay? Sigh, my mom was diagnosed with an illness a few days ago, and treating it requires a huge sum of money. I really have no choice. My heart grew colder and colder. In the long silence, he said, if you don't agree, then I won't come to arrive for the wedding ceremony. Anyway, I'm not the only one who will be embarrassed. I remembered what Mom told me. Language is the intention, action is the result. All he was saying was that he didn't want to pay the settlement, right? He was even using not coming to arrive for the wedding ceremony to threaten me. But the wedding bouquets, the invitations sent out, the venue selection. From beginning to end, I was the one constantly communicating with the planner. The entire cost of the wedding was paid for by my family. Worried he couldn't afford a ring, I even specifically bought one myself, posted a photo on social media, and told everyone it was the ring my husband bought for me and that he was very good to me. All I needed was his timely presence at the wedding and prompt arrival for the wedding ceremony, even if the settlement was just what he had scraped together from me over the years. He couldn't even do that? Mom seemed to guess something and walked towards me. Sarah, what did he say to you? Let me talk to him. I pushed Mom's hand away and told her it was fine. She had worried so much about my foolishness, how could I trouble her further? I said to David Miller, okay, you can come. I had made the biggest concession possible. David Miller desperately tried to suppress the excitement in his voice, repeatedly saying, good Sarah, you're so sensible, you're the woman I love most. But you know, my family's financial situation isn't that good, my parents are from a long line of working class folks, unlike your family, who has been in business for generations. What else do you want? I felt impatient. David Miller said, how about you contribute another house, the villa in Westwood Hills F. From your family, and transfer the 5 commercial properties in your downtown plaza building to my name? Hearing this, I widened my eyes in astonishment. The villa in Westwood Hills is very close to my family's ancestral home, priced at nearly $10 million. Most ordinary people wouldn't be able to afford even 10 square meters there even if they worked their whole lives. And the downtown plaza is in the downtown business district, with 5 commercial properties under Eleanor's name, making money hand over fist daily. I didn't expect David Miller to make such outrageous demands. Was it because I had constantly yielded without limit that he didn't cherish me at all? On the phone, David Miller was still gleefully promising me the moon. As long as you agree, I'll come to arrive for the wedding ceremony immediately. Once I make money from those properties, your husband will buy you all sorts of designer bags and perfumes. I had had enough and shouted, dream on. Snap. I hung up the phone. The people around me were startled by my sudden outburst. I turned to Mom with a vulnerable expression and hugged her. Crying, I said, Mom, I'm not getting married. I'm not getting married. Although Mom didn't know what David Miller said to me on the phone, she respected my decision. So she arranged to dismiss the wedding and apologize to the guests present. Watching Mom struggle, my tears flowed freely. If only I had listened to Mom earlier and cut ties cleanly with David Miller, I wouldn't have ended up like this. But hadn't I been good to him? In college, when his scholarship was stolen, I asked Mom to use our family's connections to get it back for him. The university leadership invited him to dinner because of me. David Miller became well known at school from then on. He liked to pretend to be rich, quit his part-time job, and treated his classmates to dinner every few days. I was the one quietly paying for him. When we went on dates, I didn't want him to spend money, so I never let him pay once. One time, the flowers he gave me were ones someone had thrown in the trash on Valentine's Day. I didn't blame him, I just told him not to do it again. After graduation, he didn't have a car, so I used my own money to take out a loan and buy a car for his commute. When he couldn't find a job, I had him work at my family's company, a cushy job with a high salary. I poured my heart out and gave him everything, yet he repeatedly trampled on my boundaries. Fortunately, I'm clear-headed now. I wiped away my tears, told David Miller I was breaking up, and decisively deleted all his contact information. Jessica said to me, "Sarah, you gave so much for him over the years, don't you feel it's a waste now?" I said firmly, "Mom told me, some costs shouldn't influence major decisions. I loved the wrong person for the past few years, but I can't let that mistake continue for a lifetime and ruin my life." I suddenly felt grateful. At least I hadn't registered our marriage, otherwise, if we divorced, he would definitely take at least half of my family's fortune. So, cut your losses. Soon, David Miller's family also received the news that the wedding was canceled. David Miller called me from a different phone. "Sarah, we can talk about the settlement and bridal assets, but by suddenly canceling, you're not just embarrassing your family." He had already sent out invitations to all his relatives. They almost all knew he was marrying up to a rich girl and were incredibly proud. He thought I would agree to his demands without limit, but he didn't expect me to actually cancel. I sneered, "David Miller, don't think you can control me anymore. Let me tell you, I've scheduled an appointment at the hospital for next week. We don't care about your settlement either, just take it and go. As for what I gave you in the past, consider it fed to the dogs." He seemed to realize something was out of his control and became somewhat flustered. But he still tried to act tough and said, "Sarah, you're really something. You missed out on a good man like me, you'll regret it." I thought things would be resolved peacefully. But I didn't expect his mother to come to my front door the next day to pick up the settlement, wailing and crying. "Oh dear, the rich girl looks down on our poor boy." Our family scraped together our life savings for the settlement. We finally managed to get $660,000. $660,000, what great sincerity that is for us poor folks. Who knew her family is so arrogant? They look down on us just because they have some stinking money. They think we're a burden. Is having money so great? David Miller shouted even louder, "Times change, don't underestimate someone just because they start with nothing." With a heavy spitting sound from his mother, a gob of yellow phlegm landed on my memorial plaque for her father's service. Eleanor and I's faces changed. That plaque was a memorial plaque for her father's service. My father died in the line of duty, and the state specifically presented it to comfort us. Mom proudly hung the plaque by the main entrance for everyone coming and going to see. For them to do this now was a blatant insult to our family. Not to mention, because of their scene, many of our neighbors came out to watch the drama. They gathered together, their faces full of gossip. Even if the young man's family is a bit poor, a person may be poor but not without ambition. How can you be snobbish? Insulting others will bring retribution. David Miller gave us a smug look. Mary Miller was still saying, "As long as you're willing to apologize, and then contribute a house as bridal assets, no need for the commercial properties, my son marrying your daughter is acceptable." Eleanor and I were trembling with anger. Was there nothing we could do but let them twist the truth? Mom wanted to call the security guards to chase them away. But I suddenly had an idea, went inside the house, connected the broadcast Bluetooth and microphone, turned the volume to the maximum, so that almost the entire gated community could hear. Then, David Miller's wheedling voice from the wedding day echoed into everyone's ears. That day, I was so emotional I accidentally hit the record button, which I only found out about afterward. I didn't expect it to come in handy today. With the recording, everything was revealed. The neighbors immediately changed their tune. Are they trying to marry in and steal our family fortune? Bah, how shameless! A grown man, actually having the nerve to ask a girl for money. What a fortune hunter! David Miller and Mary Miller clearly didn't expect this, their expressions froze. Finally, under the pointing and whispering of the crowd, they couldn't stand it and ran away in embarrassment. As they ran, Mary Miller even lost a shoe but didn't dare turn back to pick it up, fearing being spat on. Serves them right. News of my breakup quickly spread through our social circle. Because I was beautiful, had a good figure, and my family was rich, after I became single, many men immediately came flocking. One evening, someone specifically arranged candles in a heart shape and came holding a bouquet to propose to me. Amidst the noisy crowd, David Miller suddenly walked out, pointed at me, and said to Robert, "Are you sure you want this damaged goods that I dumped?" The scene instantly fell silent. Robert was stunned, and I was both shocked and angry. David Miller shouted, "How dare you, woman? You just broke up and you're already in a hurry to find your next partner, immediately move on to someone else? And let me tell you, she's pregnant, carrying my child. Whoever wants to be a rebound, go ahead and try. Even if she doesn't want this child, she's still worthless damaged goods." Feeling everyone's gaze, I shouted, "Shut up. This proposal tonight was also a setup by my friends who tricked me into coming here. I didn't know about it at all." And I was trying to figure out how to gently refuse Robert. How could David Miller jump out and say something like that? Many people's eyes turned towards my pregnant belly. There were faint, ill-intentioned expressions in their gaze. "She's actually pregnant, TSK TSK. Wasn't she hailed as the innocent but sexy beauty by guys? Now the ultimate innocent beauty has long been, by her boyfriend." And David Miller just slapped me across the face. "You despicable woman, so impatient." I was stunned by his slap. Robert, who was proposing to me, instinctively stood up to help me. But his hand paused when it touched my body, and he said awkwardly, "I'm sorry, I was impulsive today. We're not a good match." Then he hurried away. Amidst the mockery of so many, my fingers dug into my flesh. In my ear, David Miller was still saying, "I'm telling you, you're pregnant now, your reputation is ruined, no one will want to marry you. Even if some blind person proposes to you, they're definitely just after your money." I forced myself to calm down. I noticed a hidden camera in the upper left corner. Almost without hesitation, I called the police. There's a huge disparity in strength between men and women. If I had tried to fight him then, and with no one helping me, I would definitely have suffered a greater loss. Based on the surveillance footage, this incident was classified by the police as verbal harassment and assault. Detention for 10 days, and demanded $30,000 in compensation. David Miller was stunned that his one slap and a few words would cost him so much. He was completely dumbfounded on the spot. Now he had to pay the price for his impulse. "Sarah, honestly, when my friends told me you were being proposed to on Oak Avenue, do you know what I was thinking?" "What you were thinking is none of my business." He seemed not to hear me and went on rambling. "I always thought that even if we broke up, you were just being stubborn, and we'd definitely get back together. So when I heard someone was proposing to you, I completely panicked. I didn't even care about work. I went crazy looking for you on Oak Avenue. When I saw you smiling at him, I was absolutely furious. You're clearly my woman. I won't allow you to be with him. That's why I impulsively said those things." I said coldly, "So what, you think you're still a child, baby? Should I forgive you?" He finally showed his true colors. "So, just sign this letter of forgiveness, okay? Look, you're pregnant, let's not fight anymore, okay? I can give up the bridal assets of the house and commercial properties, and I'm willing to pay the settlement of $1 million, $1 million, as long as you're willing to marry me." As he spoke, he put on a deeply affectionate expression. He took out a ring from his pocket and kneeled on one knee. The police station waiting area was turned into a marriage proposal scene by him. I almost laughed out of anger. Did he think I was that stupid? That I would jump into the fire pit again and again? I said, "If you don't have a mirror at home, you must have pee, right? Why don't you look in the mirror and see your own face? I was blind to fall for you before, but I'm not blind now. Meeting a fortune hunter like you, and supported him financially for 5 years, is my bad luck." As I was about to leave, a figure suddenly rushed in through the door. It was Mary Miller. She glared at me angrily. You vicious woman, you wasted 5 years of my son's youth, and now you want to send my son to jail. Our family was really mistaken about you, you deserve to go to hell. Her cursing was too foul. Even the police officers couldn't help but frown. Mary Miller, this is your son's fault. The young lady was slapped, she must feel wronged. Please stop talking. Other officers were about to follow procedure and handcuff David Miller for detention. Mary Miller rushed forward directly, blocking them like a hen protecting her chick. No. I don't agree. Who dares to touch my son? Just try it. Her struggle made the police reluctantly loosen their grip. Mary Miller, this is procedure. If you're dissatisfied, you can apply for bail, but your son must be detained first. My intuition told me this old woman wouldn't listen. I saw her take a deep breath. I instinctively took a step back. Then I saw her hunch over, stick out 2 index fingers and poke forward, accompanied by her constantly shuffling left foot, shouting loudly, "Retreat, retreat, retreat." Almost everyone at the police station was stunned. What kind of bizarre actions was this? Not to mention those close by, who were sprayed with her saliva and couldn't help but wipe their faces with paper. David Miller seemed a bit embarrassed and couldn't help but say, "Mom, you can just apply for bail according to the regulations, don't make a scene here." But Mary Miller said, "Son, don't be afraid, Mom will protect you." Her aged face was actually glowing with a layer of what could be called saintly determination. The police couldn't help but warn Mary Miller, "If you delay us further, it will be considered obstructing legal proceedings." Mary Miller didn't listen. A group of officers tried to pull her away, but she extended her aggressive scratching and clawed at them all over. While clawing, she shouted, "Don't think I'm afraid of you, I've been around longer than you've been alive." The scene was chaotic and pandemonium. Everyone who tried to approach her was subjected to her bizarre actions with those long, dirty, yellowed fingernails. It was terrifying. The big men were fine. But a recent female police academy graduate had her face scratched, and she started crying. Who cared about her now? They swarmed her and also handcuffed her. Now both mother and son were going to be detained. This farce finally came to an end. It was also at this time that I learned that after the breakup, many rumors had spread. They said I was a gold digger who looked down on David Miller's poor family. They said I had moved on to someone else and immediately move on to someone else. Some even said I was with him just for his young and fresh looks. I knew without thinking who was secretly spreading these rumors. I almost laughed out of anger. Originally, I wanted the breakup to be somewhat civil. Even though his family repeatedly behaved disgracefully, at least I shouldn't make it so ugly. Now, why bother giving them face? So I found a lawyer and accountant and had them calculate the expenses I had spent on David Miller over the 5 years we were together, demanding compensation. I didn't realize how much it was until they calculated it. In those 5 years, I had actually spent over $4 million, $4 million plus dollars, on him. So David Miller and Mary Miller had to face hefty compensation immediately after being released from the police station. They were furious. My phone was also ringing off the hook. He said in a harsh tone, "Sarah, you really disgust me. You want me to pay back that little bit of money? What about the years of youth and emotional value I invested in you?" I was speechless. If you hadn't pushed me again and again, would I have done this? How much do you think your youth and emotional value are worth? Even raising a dog would be more useful than you. He said repressedly, "You forced me into this. I'll make you regret this." I hung up the phone dismissively, not taking it seriously. But I didn't expect that the next day, his family started a live stream, using their IDs to publicly reveal identity and make accusations against me. Mary Miller said, "My son dated a rich girl, treated her so well, and now they've broken up, and she's demanding repayment of all expenses during that time, $4 million, a full $4 million. We come from a long line of working-class folks, how can we afford to pay that back?" Some comments were still clear-headed. Don't guys usually pay in relationships? This is the first time I've seen a girl spend so much. David Miller said righteously, "Her family is rich. She forced it on me. I didn't even want to spend it, and now she wants it back after we broke up. What kind of logic is that?" his eyes red with tears. David Miller is 6 feet 1, handsome and outstanding. His vulnerable appearance on camera immediately captured the hearts of many young girls. He's so handsome, it's only right for his girlfriend to spend more money. That woman is such a turn-off. If it were me, I wouldn't just not ask for the money back, I'd even transfer $5 million to him. The popularity soared higher and higher. Later, someone even leaked my personal information, home address. Some of his fangirls rushed to my social media platforms to cyberbully me, sending abusive private messages. And many friends who learned about this were constantly discussing it in private, greatly affecting my real life. I knew they were trying to use this method to force me to cancel the lawsuit. Dream on! Did they think I was still the naive and weak Sarah from before? I immediately had the lawyer collect evidence and perform blockchain evidence preservation. Then I posted a video, directly responding to each of the abusive private messages. No matter where you run, as long as you are on this land, I will file a lawsuit against you, no matter where you are, until I send you to jail. Then, I also recounted David Miller's various actions during and after our relationship to the netizens, including my various large transfers, holiday gifts, and the recording of him using the arrival for the wedding ceremony to force me. I put it all out there. In this relationship, I have always had a clear conscience. Of course, I can withstand the judgment of netizens. As soon as the video was posted, it unexpectedly went viral. Many people said my action of standing up to cyberbullying and using legal weapons to defend myself was awesome. After they learned about all the NGS David Miller had done, they were all astonished. They flocked to David Miller's social media platform. Bro, you being a fortune hunter is an embarrassment to men, or are all men as disgusting as you? It's a big world out there, full of strange things. Today is a real eye-opener. If I get a sty tomorrow, you'll have to pay for it. David Miller quickly deactivated his account, as fast as a coward. And those fangirls who received lawsuit notices from different places were all dumbfounded and messaged me begging for mercy. Sister, I was wrong, I was just blinded by that scum. Please give me another chance. My dad works construction, my mom is sick, and I have a son to raise. I really can't afford to pay. But I ignored every single one of them. These madmen who act recklessly with a keyboard online should all pay the price for their impulsiveness. Soon, I went to the hospital. It wasn't delayed for long, but too much had happened in this short week. After the surgery, I dragged my uncomfortable body out, and Mom immediately came up and held me. Sarah, you've been through a lot. The only person in the world who truly cared for me was Mom. But besides the physical pain, there was boundless regret. It was my misfortune to meet the wrong person, to be blind and fall for David Miller. The thought of that name, and everything that had happened recently, brought a boundless wave of anger and resentment. Why should I suffer the grief of losing the child while he was living a carefree life outside? There was a foam cooler box in the trash can, looking like it had just been discarded after someone unpacked a delivery. It wasn't dirty. I picked up the foam cooler box and went back into the exam room. Mom was with me, not understanding, until I put something inside, and then a look of horror appeared on her face. Sarah, you. But she didn't stop me. The fire of angry revenge burned in my heart. The next day, I took the foam cooler box, along with Mom and a group of bodyguards, and went to David Miller's place. With the money scraped from me, David Miller's family had rented a small villa in the city, with an $8,000 monthly rent, living comfortably. I told the bodyguards to go directly and smash the decorative vases, potted plants, and garden statues outside the entrance. There was a clanging sound. It woke up Mary Miller and David Miller, who were taking a nap inside. I looked at their tired faces and said with a cold smile, "You owe me $4 million, and you can still sleep?" David Miller saw me, his expression very bad. "What are you doing here?" I said, "Bringing your family a big gift." I was about to hand him the foam cooler box, but David Miller wouldn't take it. The bodyguard simply opened the foam cooler box lid and stuffed it directly into Mary Miller's arms, forcing her to look. Mary Miller didn't understand at first, but when she realized, a piercing scream erupted from her mouth. Ah! Bang! She threw the foam cooler box to the ground. Out rolled a small, blurry mass of flesh and blood, with some parts sticking out. In the middle of summer, after being in the foam cooler box for so long, it was stinking horribly. David Miller frowned. Sarah, my house isn't a garbage dump. Mary Miller was like a woman, trying to grab my collar, but she was pulled away by the bodyguards. Mary Miller's eyes wide with fury. You woman, what a wicked heart. My grandson was already formed. How dare you take him out? How could you live with yourself? Saying this, she was wailing and crying. After all, she was an older person, especially concerned about children and descendants. Eleanor said, it's the right decision for her to not have it. Otherwise, her whole life would be ruined by you. David Miller realized what the mass was, his expression changed, his hands trembling, and he no longer seemed disgusted, picking it up. Is this my son? I said, yes, the thing you got me pregnant with by pricking the Dom. I'm giving him back to you now, are you happy? The bodyguards heard this, and their faces showed various strange expressions, looking at me oddly. But I didn't care at all. The old Sarah died after coming out of the operating room. Unexpectedly, the next moment, David Miller threw the embryo away, and it landed heavily in the flower bed in the distance. Mary Miller screamed and immediately rushed over to retrieve her precious grandson. David Miller's expression was terrifyingly sinister. Since things were completely irreparable, he might as well just completely rip off the mask. You bitch, you're fucking. His words were vile. He was so angry, he even wanted to come up and hit me. But he was stopped by the bodyguards under Eleanor's direction. I watched him with a cold smile. To me, this was just a stray dog's death throes, impotent rage. What's more, I had my ultimate trump card to control him. I said, David Miller, you should return the car, shouldn't you? David Miller was stunned. After we broke up, I told him to return the money. After he was detained, the job I helped him find was also gone. Now, only the car was left. I had specifically asked Mom for this car because I felt sorry for his commute, and he had been driving it for 3 years. Now, of course, I should take it back. David Miller said, what car, I don't know. Did he think pretending to be dumb would solve everything? Besides, I had already seen the car parked in his yard. And the car keys were hanging on his belt loop. I gave the bodyguard a look, and the bodyguard immediately rushed forward, disregarded his struggles, and forcefully took the car keys off him. Then I twirled the keys leisurely in my hand, took Mom's hand, and walked towards the car. David Miller sprinted in front of me, visibly panicking. Sarah, you want money, I'll pay you back. You got me fired, I can tolerate that, but the car, you really can't take the car. For David Miller, who had grown up poor, this car was his only hope. If I hadn't asked Mom for it, even this unremarkable Buick would have taken him, an ordinary person, 20 years to save up for. I looked at his anxious and flustered appearance and found it amusing. Perhaps because I grew up wealthy, money was insignificant to me. But it turns out, when a woman experiences the taste of money and power flowing through her hands, it is more captivating than so-called love. A mere few $100,000 could control his hope. This feeling, it was truly satisfying. In the distance, Mary Miller couldn't find her precious grandson, ran over and saw me about to confiscate her precious son's precious car, stamping her feet in a hurry. I don't agree. If any of you dare to touch my son's car, I'll call the police. This is robbery. When someone told her it was my car, she said, so what? He's driven it for 3 years, it's his car now. If you don't believe me, I'll call the police and let them be the judge. I almost wanted to laugh. Okay, Mary Miller, go ahead and call the police. I'll be waiting for the police to confiscate this car. Saying this, I was about to get in the car. Unexpectedly, David Miller's sinister voice rang out behind me. Sarah, do you have to be so heartless? You've pushed me to have nothing. I said, that's what you deserve. But I didn't expect him to suddenly rush over. In his hand, he held a sharp, glinting object. Die. It was too fast, the bodyguards couldn't react in time. A figure suddenly flashed in front of me. Then there was the sickening sound of a dagger entering flesh. Mom collapsed into my arms. My mind was still buzzing, unable to react. Mom! I cried out, almost hysterically. David Miller shouted, "Ha ha ha, good. Didn't stab you, stabbing your mom is fine too. Hope she dies immediately, make you suffer for a lifetime. Sarah, you forced me to do this." He pulled out the dagger and wanted to stab again. The bodyguards finally swarmed him and restrained him. Soon, police cars and ambulances arrived with sirens wailing. At the hospital, I stayed by her side for a day and a night, and Mom finally woke up. I knelt by her bed, tears streaming down my face. Mom, thank goodness. If you had left, Mom gently stroked my hair and said, "It's okay, Mom is fine now." Sarah, I'm also glad Mom blocked that dagger for you. If you had been the one injured, Mom would feel even more pain. I said, if only I had listened to Mom and broken up with David Miller back then, none of this would have happened. I truly wish I could go back to that time and slap myself for insisting on being with David Miller. But Mom said, "Sigh, Sarah, Mom is also at fault. If Mom had been able to explain to you clearly about this person and the logic behind his actions, instead of roughly hitting you and making you go on a hunger strike, it wouldn't have turned out like this. It's because Mom was too decisive before. I wasn't patient with you, I was too focused on my career, and I didn't give you enough love, which is why you became obsessed with his false love." Listening to Mom's words, tears streamed down my face. Mom. Now that Mom and I had spoken openly, the past misunderstandings had also disappeared. Mom and I hugged each other tightly. I felt nothing but joy and contentment filling my heart. Mom asked me what happened to David Miller. I said he was charged with assault, I hired the best lawyer, and he was sentenced to 8 years. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, and after he gets out, he and his mother will spend their lives paying off debts. Moreover, after David Miller was detained, Mary Miller immediately couldn't stand it and fainted on the spot. Afterward, she was sent to the hospital and was diagnosed with cancer, requiring astronomical treatment costs. It is said she cried and fainted in the hospital then. If not for thinking of her son, she would have wanted to jump from the building. In the distance, the CLOUDS were light, and the sky was bright. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and a well-dressed in a suit handsome man came in with a large number of get-well gifts/items. After going downstairs with him, he somehow produced flowers, and the bright red roses made his resolute face was slightly flushed. "These flowers are perfect for you." He was the man my friend introduced me to recently. He fell for me at first sight and then pursued me intensely. My situation was causing a huge stir in our social circle. Almost everyone was gossiping and mocking. But only he had stood firmly by my side the whole time. I knew I still had my own beautiful life ahead of me.